The Entrepreneur's Library, episode 136.
Welcome to the Entrepreneur's Library, the only book-centric podcast that reviews all the top-selling business books and shares authors' perspective firsthand. This is your resource to finding the next great book that will enable you to grow personally and professionally. Welcome your host, Wade Danielson.
Welcome back to the EL. Today we have Bernhard Schroeder, author of Fail Fast or Win Big, the startup plan for starting now. And I want to start off by prefacing, this is out of 136 or 135 interviews now. Bernhard is one of the most experienced entrepreneurs, from not just someone who's owned businesses, but also teaches this at an actual university. So I think you're going to get an enormous amount of value out of listening about his book. And it's a little bit before this book actually comes out, but I'm already pre-ordering it, and I think you guys will enjoy it too. So without further ado, let's bring him on. Welcome, Bernhard, and thank you for joining us on the Entrepreneur's Library.
It's good to be here, Wade.
We take just a moment before we take a deep dive into the book. We take just a moment to introduce yourself and tell us just a little bit about you personally.
So I'm Bernhard Schroeder. I'm a director of the Lavin Center, which is the Entrepreneurship Center at San Diego State University. I also teach in the entrepreneurship program, and I was a career marketing guy who happened to build $1 billion company with 3 other people and launch some amazing companies like Amazon and Yahoo.
So first off, thank you for sharing that. And now let's jump right into your book, Fail Fast or Win Big, which will be made available here fairly soon, February 18th, 2015. So just a little over a month from when we're actually recording this today. But Bernhard, we're going to move quickly, but we're here to cover the top questions that our reader slash future, or our listener slash future reader would like to get answered. The first one is, what was the inspiration behind writing Fail Fast or Win Big?
You know, one of the things I did on purpose after I kind of built a marketing career, built $1 billion company, and then I turned around 4 companies, and then I consciously decided that none of that was motivating anymore, and I wanted to somehow figure out a way to help other people have an amazing life. And I decided to go back to a college campus and teach. And as I was teaching on the campus, I was asked one day, about a year ago, maybe 2 years ago, to speak at a TED event. And so the topic for my conversation was why failing fast is great. I got an email the next day from a publisher in New York who said he'd heard about the talk from a friend of his who attended it, and he wanted to see the PowerPoint because he thought it was a book. And before you know it, he kind of gave me the feedback that this is the kind of thing that can help a lot of people. And I wrote the book.
That's excellent. So what makes your book different from others regarding the same or similar topic?
You know, I think there's some great books out there and great content on entrepreneurship. I mean, if you look at some of the authors that are in the space, you know, if they've read Steve Blank, if they've read Eric Rice, if they've read Business Model Generation from Alex Osterwalder, I think what I'm able to do, first, I'm an entrepreneur, and I've built $1 billion company, and I've helped build multi-billion-dollar companies from tiny, tiny little startups. So I have a lot of context and experience. The second thing, you know, I've kind of looked at what's happening with lean and business model and all these other things, and it's all good. But from my perspective, I wanted that kind of book that put it all together and that wasn't heavy and weighty. So that if someone who, you know, isn't this person who's, you know, going to do some sophisticated analysis or understand metrics or do this or do whatever, I wanted to give them a book in 200 pages that was full of rich content. It's not a story about my life. It's rich content on how you can actually test something quickly. And that's the idea behind Fail Fast or Win Big. The idea is, don't sit there and muse and rue about what you could do. Test something very, very quickly. And so I've taken some of the best principles of what's come out in the last 5 years, and I've put it all together in this book.
And how would you suggest the reader engage with your book? Is this one they can jump in and jump out based on, you know, information they need at that time, or did you really design it to be read from front to back?
You know, that's a great question, Wade. I designed it to be read kind of jumping in and jumping out. I mean, if you wanted to read the whole thing, you could, but my chapters are very defined. I've created an insight story from an entrepreneur and a key takeaway for every chapter. So if you just want to hone in on customer truth and find out, you know, how you should design your company around the customer, or if you want to learn the essence of what's in a business model and quickly prototype something, you can jump in and out of those chapters.
So Bernhard, now that we know the purpose, a little bit of the background behind the book, let's take a deep dive into the content itself. Will you take the next 5 to 8, maybe even 10 minutes and really break down what your book is all about?
So I'm on a college campus and I'm teaching, kids in 2008 how to write business plans. And at the same time, I'm looking at what's happening with the recession. I'm looking at, the idea that it's not about business plans anymore. It's about moving faster. It takes too long, to write a business plan. I've met with people that spend a year writing a business plan only to see someone else move into the market. So in chapter 1, I kind of explain why we are at the end of business plans and what you have to do next, and why you really don't need a business plan at all, but what you do need. And that's chapter 1. In chapter 2, I introduced my framework, the lean model framework, and the 4 elements. 4 elements being customer truth, business model, lean resources, and rapid prototyping. And I indicate in the following chapters, I'm going to stay on 2 for a second, the framework. I indicate how those play out. And so I indicate how the framework works and what are the key elements of each piece of the framework in probably less than 10 pages. So I'm really simplifying and bringing the best of everything that I've learned, what has worked, what has not worked. And I'm giving people that truth. This is not a book that's written with a lot of fancy words and a lot of pats on Bernie's back. This is a book that I, took very earnestly and said, if I'm going to pay it forward and help other people, what is that framework of mind they should be thinking about? What's the really core? And I find that a lot of people are writing books on their models that are very sophisticated, and sometimes it's almost impossible to understand the model or perhaps to execute it. So I wanted to do something simple. In the 3rd chapter, and I meet with students every day, I meet with entrepreneurs every day, and they want to pitch me their idea. When they get ready to pitch me their idea, I stop them. And I say, hold on to your idea for a second, but do you even have an identified marketplace? And what's your business model? Because if you haven't thought that through, honestly, I don't even want to hear your idea, because you're not going to pull it off. You're not going to pull it off if you haven't thought about those other 2 things first. And so that chapter explains, the title of the chapter says it all. Ideas are great, but business models rule. The next chapter, I get into another element of the framework, which is lean resources, and the chapter is entitled Lean Resources, Less is More. I am helping more. I'm probably mentoring about 20 entrepreneurs today. Since I've been on the campus 7 years, I've probably launched 100 startups with students that are generating between $200,000 and $8 million in revenue. And I'm telling you right now, they don't have money. None of the companies I've mentored or have created, we have venture capital money. It was all done with either Kickstarter, small amounts of family money, where these students, or now they're young adults, are still holding on to the equity. This chapter explains what the lean resources are that are out there that you can leverage. Moving into chapter 5, it's rapid prototyping. I don't know if there's been a better time in the history of the world for creating, a company. You want to throw up a website? Great. Go get Shopify for $29 a month. You want to, build a mobile app? Great. Go get a cloud platform that charges you $19 a month to use the mobile app. It's just amazing what's happening. You want to open up a store with a register? Great. There's cloud-based registers on iPads. All you need is an iPad. And so I explain why rapid prototyping is important and how you can test it with customers so that you can get the right feedback to know whether or not you have a good idea to move forward. In chapter 6, talk about a really critical element of the model, which is the whole customer truth. Since I started my marketing career, I've really never believed research. I've never believed what research companies tell me. I don't believe what other people tell me. I believe if you really want to understand the customer, you have to meet them face to face. So, for example, when I did work for Kellogg's, I hung out in the stores. When I did work for Mercedes-Benz, I hung out in the dealerships. I am the type of person that hangs out in places and watches customers to see what they really do. And in this chapter, I explain how you can get at customer truth and what are all the ways you can get it very cost effectively. In chapter 7, I talk about why we might not need VCs in the future, and I don't bear any ill will to the VCs. They have a role in the ecosystem. but this whole area of crowdfunding. I explain both sides of crowdfunding. I explain regular crowdfunding, and I explain the new crowd equity funding that the SEC is now getting ready to release the rules on. So the chapter is titled, Entrepreneurs Have a New Investor, the Crowd. And I honestly believe this is an amazing way to fund a small startup or to get a company started without giving up very much at all. And I explain exactly how to go about it, including how to create a crowdfunding or a crowd equity campaign. In Chapter 8, I talk about where I see opportunity today. I've been a trend guy and a futurist my whole life. I don't know why. I can't explain it to you, but I can see forward about 5 years, and I can see trends, markets, and companies coming together. Netflix launches in 97. All you have to do is step back and say, wow, they're mailing DVDs to the home, but broadband, doubles every 2 years. If you do the math, by 2005, you would have seen that Netflix would have been delivering movies online and not through the mail. It's that kind of 1 and 1 is 3 thinking that I nurtured it and grew it in my marketing career. So in this chapter, I explain what I think the top 10 to 15 opportunities are and how people can go after them. In 9, I do something very interesting. Because of the companies that I've helped and people that I've known, people like that I've done research, Pro Flowers, Kashi, Stone Brewing, Volcom, a couple other brands, I provide people with something they don't really have easy access to. And that is the first 2 to 3 years, the backstory of what these entrepreneurs did, to make it. And some of it's not pretty. Some of it's not what they intended to do. So what I'm trying to tell people here is you have to be willing and flexible to move and shift. But here's some people that created big companies. They're no smarter than you. And here's their story so that you can understand it. And that way, I believe people will go, wow, that's a big company today. You'd think they would, have had everything together. And so this is the backstory on 7 companies. Just the first 2 to 3 years, which most people are not aware of when these companies start very embryonically or from the moment of creation. And then in Chapter 10, I think I sum it up. And I talk about the steps people can take. The chapter is entitled, If You Want to Be an Entrepreneur, Be One. I think we've been taught at a young age to color between the lines, and that there's only certain ways that you get certain answers. And whenever we wanted to be creative and step outside that area, we were told by either our teachers or our parents, no, that's not what you need to do. You need to do it this way, and that's the only way. And so this is a chapter dedicated to the people who want to see the world a little bit differently, and to kind of inspire them perhaps in this chapter that you only live one life. Life's a journey. It's not a destination. And if you want to do something, then damn it, do it, because you weren't born, to be a corporate manager. You weren't born to work at Hertz or FedEx. And all you need to do is to get over your fear. And the one way to get over your fear is to acquire knowledge. And the more knowledge you acquire about what it takes to start a company, that increases your propensity for risk. And once you get a little bit more risky, just a little, you're probably more likely to create a company. In the last, I have an appendix, and that's simply the books that have influenced my life and the books that I believe people should be reading. And I think I go through about 10 to 12 books and why people should read them.
Excellent. And that'll lead one of the questions I'm going to ask you here later. I think that you might be able to help us out with maybe by referencing one of those books. And Bernhard, you did a fantastic job of taking us through what we can expect out of your book, and the content and context within your book is amazing. I can't wait to dive in myself when it actually comes out. So this next question I think is extremely relevant because it even takes what you just did and puts it even more in a nutshell. And that's, if the reader could only take away one concept, principle, or action item out of everything you wrote in your book and everything you just discussed with us, what would you personally want that to be?
I think the concept that I'd want it to be is, and it sounds like it's serious and it sounds psychological, and it's not. I'd want it to be that they really weren't born to do anything, and they should do what they want. I wasn't born to be an entrepreneur. I became one. I wasn't born to be a marketer. I wasn't born to be a professor at a university. But one thing I've been in my life is extremely curious. And the more curious I've been, the more I've learned. The more I've learned, the more I've eventually became an expert. And the more I continue to move from there. I mean, there's no reason for me to go from being a marketing guy to being an entrepreneur of $1 billion company, to being a C-level executive, to turning companies around, to going to a university, to becoming a director of a center, to writing a book, to doing all these things. And I don't even feel like I'm done. I just want to continue to be curious. So if there's one thing that absolutely they have to nurture their curiosity. So if they wanted to, go into the pet industry, they better know every damn thing about it. They better go to a dog park. They better own a dog. They better know every trend that's occurring around pets. And so I would say it's a simple word, but most people don't use it in their life, and it's just to be curious.
There's so much that you just said that was quote worthy, and that leads into our next question, which is, do you have a favorite quote from your book?
I don't know if I have a favorite quote, but I'll give you one that's getting me in trouble on the university campus. As an entrepreneur, you are not in the business of writing business plans.
So if you were to finish that, if someone were to say, well, because that automatically makes me start thinking, well, Bernhard, what are you in the business of? Would you say adding value?
You're in the business of creating a company. Mm-hmm. I've seen people spend a year writing a plan when they should have just spent 30 days creating a business model, in the next 30 days testing out the premise, and in the next 30 days maybe selling something and moving forward instead of spending. I watch people, Wade, try to write a perfect business plan. I've read probably hundreds, if not 1,000 or more of them. There is no such thing as a perfect business plan. Everyone writes one and they think it's perfect. It's not. It's dead on arrival. Why? Because markets continue to move, competitors move, trends shift, customers shift, and I'm not a big proponent. I understand the planning part of writing business plans. Personally, I'm teaching kids at school how to quickly prototype a business model. Because if they can identify a good business model, I can teach them how to write a simple, maybe 3 to 5 page strategic plan on how we're going to launch a business based on this solid business model.
That's huge. What a huge concept. Again, I love it. You and I were talking about beforehand, but the idea of a college teaching entrepreneurship, I absolutely love. I love the fact that kids are now getting that education, and that their first experience with it isn't when they get out of college, but that they have the opportunity to get educated. And someone like yourself that's passionate about it, I absolutely love. But Bernhard, if there was only one book you could recommend to our listeners based on the way that's impacted your life, maybe created a paradigm shift or a lifestyle shift, what would you recommend?
It's going to sound crazy because it was a book that came out a while ago. One of the things that I find that most people are not very good at, I mean, some people think they're good at it, but maybe they're not, is selling. And I really spend a lot of time with entrepreneurs that are afraid to sell. They'll start a company, things are going well, but they really won't dive in. The book that I think changed the way I looked at people was a book by Neil Rackham called Spin Selling. I had never thought that you could understand how to sell air or how to create a product out of nothing. I don't think I would have been able to help launch Amazon if I hadn't read that particular book, maybe 7 to 8 years earlier, because it's the idea that you really have to lean in and understand what people want. It's not about what you're selling. It's about what they want to buy. And that was a mind shift for me. Because early in marketing, I thought it was about what I needed to sell people. So I just need to sell, sell, sell. When I read that book, I was like, wow, I am upside down. I got to figure out how to really understand people so that I can get them to buy from me. That was cathartic. I honestly believe that changed my life.
That's huge. Believe it or not, that's actually the first time that book's been recommended.
Okay.
So that's awesome. I love getting.
It was Neil was a trainer at Xerox, and he left Xerox, and he was with Huthwaite Company, and they did a training consulting. And not only did I read the book, but one of my mentors forced me to go to a 3-day workshop in San Francisco, and those 3 days changed me.
That's fantastic. Well, Bernhard, before we depart, can you recommend the best way for listeners to not only get more information on you, but also get more information on your book, Fail Fast or Win Big?
I do have a website. It's www.bernhardschroeder.com. That will be the story of what I've been doing. It's also the story of what I've done and what's in the book. there's a little bit more information in the book. Obviously, they can look at my LinkedIn profile. I'm constantly writing articles about what I believe in LinkedIn. And so I've got quite a few people reading what I put out in LinkedIn.
Very good. Well, Bernhard, again, thank you so much for coming on and sharing your book with us.
Thank you, Wade.
Thanks again for listening in today. If you want more information on Bernhard or his book, Fail Fast or Win Big, check out the show notes at the elpodcast.com. And if you want an opportunity to win this fantastic book, become a VIP at that same spot, the elpodcast.com.
Looking for your next book idea? Head over to the elpodcast.com, where Wade shares his amazing resource, the top 10 business books recommended by over 500 entrepreneurs, with you for free. That's the elpodcast.com. Till the next time, keep it on the EL.